Hola! I am so honored to be here today, but honestly, I found out why I get asked to these things. It's because if you're worried about eroding pay, eroding benefits, more and more wingnuts from your state legislature, attack governors, when you think things couldn't possibly get worse, the first person you absolutely think of to come and speak to you is someone who has worked in Utah. You are going to feel so much better about wherever it is that you live. You watch the news. You've heard speaker after speaker at this conference get up and tell you what's going on in the world. I will tell you, I've talked to people who've worked for 40 years or more at the NEA building. No one has ever seen a time like this. No one has ever been under attack like this. Politicians are out to get revenge from anyone who gets a paycheck from a public school, college, or university. It's never been this nasty. It's never been this bad. That's why it is the perfect time to celebrate. We need to party, and when somebody from Utah tells you it's time to party, you need to pay attention. It doesn't happen very often, okay? This conference is a celebration of our united voice, of our united strength. This conference has been a celebration of who we are, and who we are is an education family. There are, yes, very powerful forces out there who want to take away the little we've won for our families, for our colleagues, for the communities that we serve, and they are out to get us. Attacks have happened in this very room this weekend. Some of you know what has happened. What we've been seeing are a few individuals who blend into the crowd. They're doing this all over the country, and they will talk to you, and you think you're talking to one of your colleagues, and they'll ask you questions. They want you to say something very controversial. They want to hear you swear, and they are secretly recording you. They have been in this room, this conference. This is like a limbo contest. How low can you go? These guys win. It is a violation of trust. It is a violation of common decency. And what they want to do is to capture you saying something outrageous, and then they'll put it on YouTube so that they can say, see, look how awful these people are. We will not be frightened or intimidated from speaking out. We will speak out respectfully. We will speak out loud and clear. They don't frighten us, and we will put them in their places. Be aware, but be aware how mean it's gotten out there. The only power that we have, we don't send people out into other people's conference to ambush them. We're very honest about what we say, and we say it in front of the camera while it's rolling. The only power we have is in our numbers. They want to hurt us. They're also out to hurt the services that we provide to our communities, and they know that they can do that if they weaken our numbers. So they want to make it very hard for our association to simply organize, and the other part is they want there to be less reasons for people who might want to join us. So that's the attacks on collective bargaining. That's the attacks on our pension. Many of the people behind this are, of course, billionaires. I have very few billionaires who live in my neighborhood. Perhaps you have more who live in your communities. You would be shocked to find out how very few billionaires we have who work for America's public schools, colleges, and universities. I was astounded. So no, we don't get to make our voices heard over a 3-martini lunch with the Speaker of the House or playing golf with the governor. None of us has millions of dollars. All we have is each other. We have millions and millions of very good, hardworking people who are fearless at standing up and speaking out for what they know is right and what they know is fair. We have actually evolved. In some places, we are still in the process of evolving. But you are at the top now of that evolution. You are at the top of an inclusive organization that recognizes and respects the work that each of us brings to that learning institution that's counting on us. Every single student from preschool to graduate school counts on the work that we do. And there are those in high political places with impressive titles, people who are not friends of public education, who are angered by our united voice. They are actually frightened by our united voice because they have big plans. And we are ordinary middle-class citizens who are standing in their way. How dare we do that to billionaires? To get what they want, they have to pit people against each other. They have to drive a wedge between the people who should be on the same side. So they need to divide those who drive the bus from those who hold the chalk, from those who maintain the school buildings, from those who answer the phones. They are trying now to drive a wedge between middle-class workers who happen to be represented by a union and middle-class workers who don't have a union. They feel like they can tell the public, because most of the public now does not belong to a union, that you belong to a public sector union, and that makes you a greedy, privileged class of human beings. So they tell the public, those greedy union goons, that's you, by the way, have better health care than you have. They have something called a pension. You don't have those things because we took them away from you when we got rid of your unions. And they think, the union goons think, they have a right to something that you don't have. They think they deserve it. Now, it's true that because we have a union, we have been better able to protect and negotiate better health care and retirement benefits. Good for us. Very few in the private sector now are protected by unions, mainly because the same kinds of politicians and their corporate cronies have systematically destroyed and choked off more and more private sector unions. As we lose manufacturing jobs, we've had a harder time organizing high-tech firms. So no, we don't think we're privileged. We think all working people should have decent pay and benefits. And that, of course, is harder to do with fewer people in unions. As unions have gotten smaller, the gap between the mega rich and people who live paycheck to paycheck is growing. That's not because we have too many union members, it's because we have too few union members. The erosion of unions has meant the erosion of the middle class. Middle class folks today have very few protections from corporate greed. There are some stellar corporations out there, corporations that really do respect and care for their employees, and there are others that do not. There are others that have corporate CEOs who literally make more than 400 times the pay of their average workers. They manage by fear, they manage by intimidation, they skimp on workplace health and safety, they put their workers in danger. There are places you know that have forced their workers to work off the clock overtime. You punch out and then you come back and you keep working, and if you don't, we'll find a reason to fire you. Laws and contracts have been violated because CEOs know that individual workers can't afford to hire a lawyer to protect them. Unions can, and unions do. So they have systematically destroyed private sector unions so that there is, in many places, no check, no balance to corporate greed. Public sector unions, like education unions, are still pretty strong, so we're able to better protect ourselves. Attack politicians see that as a threat to their power, the same way that corporate bosses saw unions as a threat to their power. We still have the ability to stand up to very powerful people when we see that they are doing something that will hurt those that are depending on us to protect not only a respectful work environment, but protect the communities that benefit from the services we provide. So we've been able to fend off things that protect all Americans. We've been able to work against privatizing things like Social Security, voucherizing Medicare, or privatizing our public schools. We do this only because the public is with us. I don't care what you've heard on the news from the attack governors. This is not about balancing their budgets. I know that there is a budget crisis in virtually every state, except for some reason South Dakota. I haven't figured that out, but yeah, they told us there's no problem in South Dakota. Okay, let me correct that. In literally every state, even South Dakota. Attack governors, they want the public to believe that we're a privileged class that should be stripped of our pay, our benefit, even our right to be involved in good faith negotiations. But they want more than that. I mean, that's bad enough. They want people to actually believe we caused this crisis. There's a room here for an economics lesson and a history lesson. Public sector salary and benefits have been flatlined for several years now. And you don't have to read the report from the Center for American Progress on that. You can just look at your pay stub. I need to know, raise your hand if you have received double-digit pay increases in the last 2 or 3 years. And if you have, please tell us what planet you're from so we can immigrate. The truth is that really in the past 20 years, in good faith negotiations, we have tried to maintain our benefits. It has cost us in pay. We've always worked within the budget that the state or school district has. And when you look at it, compensation for public employees has slightly decreased because they keep hiring fewer of us, asking us to do more work with less colleagues. So no, as a percentage of total state budgets, we are actually less per capita. We are not responsible for breaking the bank. There are 2 reasons for this budget crisis. Number 1, billionaire bankers and financial executives on Wall Street got greedy. That's why we're here. They played games with bundling bad loans and then selling them as if they were safe, high-quality investments. They lied to us. And we bought these investments believing their lies, and we put them in our 401ks and in our pension funds. Real people got very, very hurt by this greed. My mother is a military widow. Many of you have talked to my mother, and when you meet my mother, you're going, oh, Lily's the quiet one in the family. My mother lives off her life savings, mutual funds that she and my dad spent a lifetime scrimping and saving to put together for her security if anything happened to my dad. My dad died of brain cancer a couple of years ago, and his pension died with him. It was a comfort to him to know in his last days that he had put enough safe investments in their mutual funds so that my mother could live to be 110 and still be comfortable. That's what he thought. He died 2 months before the economic bottom fell out of the market. I am so glad he did not live to see my mother lose half, overnight, half of what it took them a lifetime to save. And it wasn't because her daughter had a unionized pension plan. It was the greed of deregulated, unaccountable, and by the way, non-union Wall Street. They want the world to forget that. It was a privileged class that got to keep their billions in bonuses. I mean, aren't you supposed to get a bonus when you're doing a good job? That got to keep their bonuses while they were bankrupting the rest of the country and my mother's savings. This is, by the way, not class warfare to point this out. This is simple truth. This is the fact. Bailouts using our tax dollars paid for a lot of those bonuses. And the same people, the same talking heads you see on the news stories, the news shows that are advocating to give governors the political power to break our contracts as political payback have actually argued when they were talking about Wall Street bailouts that the government could not possibly not pay, not honor these bonuses, these billion-dollar bonuses in Wall Street, because the government shouldn't be interfering with what people are paid. And limiting CEO salaries that were being paid with tax dollars of bailout money, well, it's just not the government's role. Bonuses have to be paid because you have to honor a contract as long as it's not a union collective bargained contract, apparently. Now, that's one reason we're in this mess, but there's another. At the same time that we were turning a blind eye to Wall Street until it was too late, with the other hand, we were giving away tax revenue as fast as we could with tax breaks for the biggest corporations and the wealthiest individuals. We were giving it away as fast as we could because that would produce jobs. It might have produced jobs, but not in our country. Those jobs have yet to come to our shores. This is not about budgets, and it's not a crisis that we created. Better governors than the governor of Wisconsin, and I know that's a low bar, have balanced tougher budgets without destroying the rights of unions to simply have a voice to advocate for what they need. Oregon's governor said that bargaining with his state's public employees is a key part of his solution to his budget crisis. That's the mindset that tells us not every governor is in this position. This is about one thing. It's about silencing the only voice left advocating for the middle class. So, now, we're in the crosshairs. Attack governors like to think of themselves as political CEOs. They want to destroy our public sector unions in the same way that powerful CEOs destroyed the private sector unions when they could, and for the same reason, so that there will be no check, no balance to their power to do anything they want to do, and we will have two choices: take it or leave it. This is not about shared sacrifice. In Wisconsin, unions came together and they agreed to the financial concessions. They said, we understand the crisis, we're willing to do our part. The budget was balanced based on their concessions. But by the way, there was no sharing of sacrifice. There was no touching the tax breaks for the mega rich. There was no touching the corporate loopholes for the biggest businesses that could have brought in millions, if not billions, of new revenue to balance that budget. Attack governors want more than concessions to balance the budget. They don't ever want their friends to have to share the pain. They want to be able to break unions because their intention is that all future balancing of budgets will come from cuts in the public sector. They want bigger breaks, and they've said this, they want bigger breaks for their friends, and because of this, the budget will always be in crisis. If there is ever a good year, it will not be shared with us. It will be shared with the richest of the rich. Wall Street greed will come from our paychecks in this crisis. And to balance state budgets, they've already done some calculations, and they've said if they're not going to look beyond the paychecks of people who work for local, state, and county government, and that includes school districts, it will mean 25% pay cuts just from our pockets. If attack governors sacrifice us, then they can fix the potholes and pay for the streetlights, and then they can afford even bigger cuts for their friends. Yes, there is a class warfare that they would like to see. They believe that having class warfare will get them to this place, but it's not rich against the not rich. They need the middle class to fight the middle class. And if they can do that, there will be no one to challenge them. No one to challenge the hypocrisy of tax breaks for the wealthiest. No one to challenge privateers and profiteers. No one to stand up for working people, for their Social Security, their Medicare, for a good school in every neighborhood, for families being able to afford college for their children. Most important, there will be no organized voice in elections. And elections are all about holding politicians accountable for the decisions that they make. If we're there, that messes up their plans, because we have a nasty habit of telling the truth. But we're going to be there because we have plans of our own. We have plans for decent compensation and benefits for all working people, for quality learning conditions for all students, for public policies that are humane and fair for every person. And we're not afraid of the power that comes with our united voice. We accept that power and we accept that responsibility. The attacks have never been more vicious, more underhanded, more unfair, but that means that there's never been a better, more important time for us to stand up and be proud of who we are and celebrate who we are. No one has ever had to tell me how important we are as an association. I think that's self-evident. We need to ratchet it up to a personal level. I have always known how important I am as an individual. In fact, some of you know that several years ago I was diagnosed as humility challenged. I think I'm incredible. I'm taking medication. It's not working. I still think I'm incredible. I stopped waiting. I so am. I stopped waiting for a pat on the back about my second year in a public school. I set high standards for myself. I meet those standards because they're my dad's standards. I was born with those standards. It's on my DNA. He always told me, do more than they asked, do it better than they expected, and you will never be fired. They will fire your boss before they fire you. My dad was, by the way, after he retired from the military, he worked for the FAA, and he was shop steward for the FAA, a public sector union. That's the work ethic of a union man. I know in my heart that I'm really good at what I do. I've tried to be worth every penny I've ever earned. I am incredible. But don't think that that is the arrogance of an association officer or a teacher. I felt the exact same way when I was Miss Lily, the lunch lady. Okay, and I tell people, and it's on my resume, that my first job in a school was a lunch lady. That's kind of padding my resume. I was the salad girl. I had not moved up to hot food yet. But I could make that green Jell-O with the little carrot shavings in it, and you would eat it, and you would love it. It was incredible Jell-O. And I could tease my kids when they went through my line. I didn't know everybody's name, so I would just make up names when I was plopping stuff on their trays, and I'd say, hey, Wonder Woman, hey, Muscle Man, hey, Cutie Poop, eat those peas, and they'd laugh. And I went, you know, I think I made their day a little better because they were doing something that wasn't supposed to be fun, going through the lunch line, and I got to make it fun for them. Then I got to be a kindergarten aide. I was incredible. You know, I gave myself goosebumps. My kids could sing all the words to the classic, "Don't stick your finger up your nose because your nose knows it's not the place it goes," and we sang it with dignity. And the kindergarten teacher I worked with said, you know, you're really good with kids. Have you ever thought about going to college and being a teacher? That was the first time in my life that anyone had suggested I might go to college. My dad never finished high school. My mom never went to college. And I remember thinking, I would be an incredible teacher. I should do this. And so I was an incredible teacher. I was the Utah Teacher of the Year in 1989. And not because my kids got some cut score on a commercial standardized test. I was incredible because I convinced my kids that they were incredible. And they were. They never let me down. I had power. Every time I spoke to a child, whether I was wearing a hairnet in the kitchen or whether I was holding chalk at the front of the room, every day I made a personal decision about my attitude. And I know that that affected the kids around me. I know that they could feel that. I refuse to be insignificant in the lives of my students. It doesn't matter what role I'm in. There are no insignificant members of this association. Our kids need us, every one of us, and we need each other. And that's why you are so important. You're important to your students. You're important to your colleagues. You're important to me. You're my boss. I work for you. And I have never been prouder of the people I work for. I have never been prouder of my union. I see you, education support professionals, standing up, talking to the press, in the bullhorn at a rally, at a microphone, and you don't shake. You don't flinch when you're being attacked. And that brings tears to my eyes because I know something you know, but a lot of people don't know. I know that our ESPs don't have the same job protections as our teachers. I know our ESPs don't get the same benefits as our teachers. Your jobs are on the line every day, some of you month to month, and yet you are standing beside your teacher colleagues, your university colleagues, and you are speaking up just as strongly, just as bravely. There is no hesitation in your voice. You are making the case in a way no one else could. When we have a governor that wants to say, look at these rich teachers who make more money and have better benefits than you have, and they're speaking to a public where they've experienced unemployment and depressed wages now for years, well, we will ask a bilingual aide who's making minimum wage with no benefits, living paycheck to paycheck, stand up and say, I'm also the association. I also work in this public school, and that aide is as passionate about her students, and yet no one is going to call her a privileged class. Our ESPs give a different face to who we are. It tells the world how hard we work and why we do this, because it is in our hearts, people who spend their lives serving other people's children. And it's a face that's inspiring people. I believe it's actually inspiring some of the states who don't have folks in this audience right now. There are some states that do not aggressively organize their ESPs, and they're taking a look now at what they're missing. They're missing your heart, and that's a lot to miss. 2 million ESPs are out there waiting for us to organize them. Research shows that 1 out of, you need to settle, all right, settle. Chill. Or sometimes medication, you never know. Where was I? Research shows that 1 out of 4 ESPs belong to a union. That's not big enough. We know that 4 out of 4 ESPs need a union. We know that some things are sure. Whether you're a teacher or an ESP, you're underappreciated, you're underpaid, and you know that things aren't going to get better till we stand together and stand up for each other. Attack politicians. They know something about standing together too. Of course, they can stand together in a phone booth. You don't take many billionaires to be able to do what they're doing here. And they are joined at the hip. They're reading from the same script. The same exact words come out of their mouths, no matter what state you're talking to, New Jersey, Idaho, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Indiana, Ohio, Florida, you can fill in your state later on. They say it's just a coincidence that they're all saying exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. They think the public are fools. We're not. Attacks are already backfiring. Attacks are bringing our family closer together than ever before. Teachers, ESPs, college professors, retirees, students, and not just our student members, I mean our boys and girls students. They're all over YouTube, whatever that is. Students and their moms and dads and their grandmas and grandpas are showing up at these rallies. And by the way, Republicans and Democrats and independents. This is so radical an attack that the attack politicians have actually separated themselves from the voters, the everyday people who would say, I'm a Republican and this doesn't make sense to me. We are building a bipartisan coalition of common sense people that want to see us win. And I'm here to pledge to you on behalf of your NEA, we will always stand together. We will lift each other up and they will never hold us down. Wisconsin is not down. The energy in Wisconsin, wow, wow. Dennis left here after Friday night's banquet and attended a rally in Wisconsin where people like the actress Susan Sarandon were there to offer their support. Tony Shalhoub, the guy that plays Monk on TV, his sister is a Wisconsin teacher. And he got up and gave his support. People all over that don't make a living in public schools are standing by us. And that shouldn't surprise us. We stand by each other. Marching with unions, with farm workers. Years ago, Cesar Chavez said, El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. The people united will never be defeated. And marching with sanitation workers and their strike, Martin Luther King would say, we came to this country in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. And that is true. That has never been truer for those of us that get a paycheck from a public school, college, or university. So here's what you can expect from the NEA. Membership building is going to be our priority. They're trying to cut the legs out of our members. They're trying to say, you don't want to belong to this union. We're going to make it difficult for you to even pay dues to your union. Everything we hope to accomplish for our families, for the communities we serve, will depend on whether or not we have a strong membership in every single category. And membership building is everybody's business. Leaders, staff, UNISERV, rank and file members, and people who think that one membership category is more important than others are finding out they're wrong. It's simple arithmetic. The bad guys are about subtracting. We have to be about addition, adding. The bad guys are about dividing. We have to be about multiplying. And we are absolutely about reaching out to every single member of our family. Our education support professionals need to come into our NEA family, and it's the truth that's bringing us together. Attack governors want people to think we're overpaid and privileged and we're standing in the way of progress, and it's really hard not to laugh when millionaires are telling a school custodian or a third grade teacher or a school secretary that they're overpaid and privileged. And by the way, I am not privileged because I worked in a system that had a pension fund. I worked for that pension. Nobody gave it to me. But I am a privileged class. I am privileged to belong to my union. I wish everyone had the opportunity to be that privileged. I've seen people with the most courage I've ever seen who spend all day long working with kids, working in their day job, and then they'll show up at a rally, they'll show up at a meeting, they'll look at a website to find out what's going on and what they should do. And they want to make sure that they're involved. They want to make sure that the students they worked for today, that they will still be there for those students tomorrow. The TV's full of rallies and speeches and shouting as we organize to defend ourselves against those attacks, but everywhere I look, people are still talking about how proud they are of what they're doing for their students. We saw that with our custodians that were up here. We saw that at the banquet when we saw all of those proud people saying, I work for students. I help kids learn. I've seen miracles come from people who are not highly paid and not highly privileged. They simply understand how important they are to the students in their care every single day. You do more than you were asked to do. You do it better than anyone expected because you are simply proud of what you do. You will not let any politician take that pride away from you. We will celebrate that pride every day. You are proud, you are determined, you are caring, you are unstoppable, you are incredible. And it is an honor for me to be the smallest part of you. Gracias por ser mi familia. Thank you for being my family.